Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here, everyone. I am joined today. Look at me. I forgot to bring up our little banners. Gosh darny diggity darn it. All right, show display names. Mike Brown, the one and only Mike Brown, everyone. Thank you guys for joining me, and thank you, Mike Brown, for joining me again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the jump on here. This is good stuff.
Today's a special day for you.
It is. This is an anniversary for me. October 17th, 2003 is the day that I officially departed Scientology's international base at Golden Era Productions and blew this organization. 20 years ago today, I was free of Scientology.
Wow. A lot has changed in that 20 years.
A lot has changed in that 20 years, quite a bit.
Hey, before we get too far into this, let me show everyone your channel. You can subscribe to Mike over at Mike Brown 101. I think Mike Brown's a pretty generic name, but I think you might be getting to the point where a search for Mike Brown might bring you up in the top result for many people.
I hope so. What's crazy about this SPTV phenomenon, people getting on here and sharing the story, and a lot of it has to do specifically with getting the word out about Rosemary, my mother. But in a very short period of time, I've been able to get a lot of subscribers. I'm trying to get the word out. I've gotten myself, in front of a lot of other creators to help me spread that word. And it is absolutely phenomenal the way this movement is going and how fast it's going. It's so out of the norm for, I think, what YouTube is used to, that, here we are. And it's coming faster and faster and faster. It's just unbelievable.
It's true. This is a little bit of a segue, and it might be a bit of a douchey thing to say, but I was talking to someone today about a channel with 160,000 subscribers who had just uploaded a video. And I said to this person, for a channel with that many subscribers, this video really doesn't have a lot of views. And this person said, that's actually normal for YouTube. You and your other SPTV channels are not normal. You guys get
we're not
a lot more views on your videos, given subscriber counts than you should. Even your channel, they said a normal channel getting like 6, 7, 8% of your subscribers, or your number of subscribers to watch any given video is considered pretty good. You guys are like freaks.
Yeah, that's true. So like how fast it went, because my channel there's two, I guess, benchmarks for monetization of a channel. And I think so far my channel has made a whopping $10, but that's great. But for monetization, you need 1,000 subscribers, which is a big accomplishment. And then you also then have to get your watch hours up above 4,000 watch hours. I had 1,000 subscribers in under 24 hours with the interest that was shown with my mother's story and getting that out there. People immediately just jumped on that. And I'm like, I'm going to keep sharing it. So I'm glad people are interested in it. And then the watch hours came within probably the first week to maybe 8 days. And then with that, the algorithm between the YouTube, what it's displaying when you look at it straight ahead versus what's actually kind of in the background with the monetization channel, there's like a 3 or 4 day lag on that stuff. It's not supposed to go that fast. So for things to occur this fast, it's going faster than YouTube is really set up to handle. Well, not to handle, but to, kind of keep up with what's going on in the front and what's going on in the back. So it's amazing. It's really, really something. Yeah.
For people who love comedy and love to laugh, even when hearing us talk about the kind of dark stuff that we tend to talk about, I'm going to share with you a YouTube short that Mike uploaded to his channel. That is one of the funniest damn things I've seen in a long time. Let me get this bad boy ready. Let's see. Maybe we'll do it this way just so everybody can be sure to see the whole thing. Get ready, guys. Ah! How come I'm not getting audio on this? See, you know what? Seriously, why am I not getting audio on this? Oh, there it is. That's why.
Do something.
Okay, back up. And here we go.
Being a Scientologist, when you drive past an accident, it's not like anyone else. As you drive past, you know you have to do something about it because you know you're the only one that can really help.
We were in the middle of our tournament when my friend John said he found a body in the bushes over there. I ran over there because I'm a healing monk to try and help, but obviously my magic wasn't strong enough because the dude's body was missing a head.
He or she has the ability to create new and better realities and improve conditions.
So my friend decided to try and use a necromancer spell, which didn't work, which I knew it wouldn't.
Being Scientologist, you look at someone and you know absolutely that you can help them.
And apparently we contaminated the crime scene because that spell uses a lot of glitter.
I think it's a privilege to call yourself a Scientologist, and it's something that you have to earn. And because a Scientologist does. Being a Scientologist.
Oh my goodness. I've watched that thing like 100 times.
It's really good. Anyway,
my goodness.
So that was a lot of fun to make. So I'm, obviously struggling around trying to learn the video editing software. And if I was thinking to myself, if I worked at Golden Era Productions, I would have this multi-million-dollar editing suite of like things to do and like people trying to learn how to use it. And I did that for like free. And it was a lot of fun.
It's true.
It took me longer than it should have. I got a buddy, Nick, at work who has his own little YouTube channel, completely separate stuff. And, he laughs at me and how long it takes me to do these things, but I'll get faster. So
to think that Scientology, I think they spent between purchasing and renovating the property, like $100 million on their KCET studios in Hollywood.
Wow.
And it's like we reach more people with these videos that we're producing for nothing than they reach on their super expensive, super high-end, very highly produced AV content. And it has to drive Miscavige absolutely insane.
Oh, one can hope, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like I know just at the property at Golden Era Productions, everything's state of the art. It's there was this feeling all the time about anything that was made that if there was any degradation of quality, that it wouldn't get the message out, it wouldn't be usable. That's why there's all this emphasis on the very finest and the very best, because you don't want it to alter the psychotic meanderings of L. Ron Hubbard, so that the tech really gets through. And like, for instance, that download of that Tom Cruise video, that thing is a grainy, low-res piece of crap, with like LARPer dude that I like modified off of a newscast that somebody videoed with their phone, and I just kind of clipped it out. Apparently, I mean, so far it's gotten a lot of interest. So
how many views did this bad boy get? I've got to say.
It's close to 10,000.
Holy cow. Tom Cruise generates a lot of interest. I mean, I did one of a funny short. Remember back when people were doing shorts of everyone doing the Wednesday Addams dance? Do you remember? I don't know. Oh, well, someone, the Tom Cruise impersonator on Instagram or TikTok put a hilarious a video of basically Tom Cruise doing the Wednesday Addams dance. And I copied it and I edited it and I did like Tom Cruise after finishing OT 9 and 10. And the thing got like, I don't know, 800,000 views of just Tom Cruise doing a stupid little dance. I saw someone in the chat that said I turn off notifications for any channel that uploads these shorts. Guys, I mean, the beast wants what the beast wants. I mean, probably TikTok is to blame. TikTok started stealing all the views from like Instagram. And so then Instagram uploaded their reels, and then YouTube created, or Instagram created their reels, YouTube created their shorts. And if you look in your YouTube feed, YouTube is like really suggesting and pushing the shorts content, which is a shame because they're kind of annoying. Yeah. But when I can, I will take my videos and snip them into little shorts because that's what the internet wants. It's kind of a weird thing.
It's true. And I think a beauty of why people really love this is this long form content. And there's a lot of really popular podcasts, and what people want is they want that organic conversation, which is so far away from the way that all the Scientology products would be produced. I need to talk with Headley about this sometime, because we were both in the manufacturing lines and stuff, but everything is like so edited, like those POW videos. Yeah. Nothing about those looks at all realistic. They put out these things like they're sitting there with this like fake background and all this sort of stuff, and they're lighting and makeup all done. And I'm like, I got some like college lights like down here, like shining it. I'm in my bedroom and I just rotate the desk. And my wife's like, we need to put you in the guest bedroom. This is like, anyway, you need out of the corner and like go over somewhere else. Anyway, but hey, it works out just fine. I'm getting my message out and I'm sharing the truth of what's going on. And by the way, Rosemary, for those I've seen in the chats, Rosemary, my mom, is absolutely watching right now. So if anyone wants to say hi to her, feel free to just throw it in there in the chat as well. So
that's awesome. The other good use of short form content is to be able to share some tiny little helpful kernels of videos that otherwise are 90 minutes long, 2 hours long, 3 hours long. A lot of people love watching that long form content, but half the people in the world or more probably don't, and you still want them to be able to get a flavor of some of the really good stuff that's in there. So
absolutely,
you can't keep everybody happy all the time, and that's just the way that it is. Hey, look, looking back 20 years, what's just some of the craziest things that whether it's like where you are now that you never would have dreamed, or shit from 20 years ago that you're like, I just can't believe we ever put up with that, live that way. What's some of the biggest differences that you see?
All of those things. My goodness, what a question. So I think looking back, like the mindset of where I was up until the point where I kind of became disillusioned with David Miscavige, as we've kind of talked about before, I was a believer. I was all there. Like there's none of this like half-baked membership thing when you're a Sea Org member, and that's true for Scientologists as well. But then up at that upper echelon, we were always being told we weren't doing enough. We were the problem. We were suppressive persons, or we're dragging down Scientology. And all I wanted to do was do as much as I could to show him that I was there to do everything that I absolutely could. And I just have to tell basically the story of where that flipped for me in my mind. And we've said time and time again that the majority of the problems created by like with the whole SPTV phenomena and by Scientology, very much go back to David Miscavige. So I'm here because of the way he treated my mother, and then I found out about that. So then I'm going to share that, and I'm like, okay, well, they now have me as a problem. But where I flipped from being a devout follower to somebody that just didn't want to be there anymore, with two things that happened. The first one, I was working on, I got to give a shout out to John Sosowski. I'm probably messing your name up. I got these in the mail, buddy. Sostovsky. I got these in the mail. They arrived, and they are going to accompany this little bad boy right here. So this guy, we'll do a little Davey story time on why it is that Mike Brown is a big bad SP these days. So I was down in the print shop at Golden Era Productions. We had this on-demand printing line for all of the audio-visual equipment that we would be making. And I think I was on day 5 of probably not sleeping. And here comes little Davey walking into my area with Larice. And we're sitting there trying to get some laminations done, and we're having to cut them a certain way. The machine that they bought didn't work properly. And he's asking me why I'm cutting the things the way that I am. This is after I'd been up for days and days and days. I think this is when we were putting out the Philadelphia doctorate course lectures for the Free Winds release. He said I was altering the production line. And anyone that's been at Golden Era Productions, that is the biggest 4-letter word that you can say is altering or tearing apart a production line. It's a suppressive act. And he's like, you are altering this production line. It was the one that was created by CST, and it was horrible. So he's yelling at me about this. And he says to me, I ought to beat the shit out of you. And this was probably a month or two after he had hit Mark, and Mark almost pounded him into the ground, like Mark Headley. And I think he realized that him doing this to people that are younger and probably larger than him, which I am, he's probably going to get his ass kicked. And he was only there at that time with Larice. Usually he's walking around with a whole entourage, but it was just there. So he just threatened me. And I thought, how fucking horrible is that? Like, how horrible is it that I'm being threatened by the Pope of our religion that he ought to beat the shit out of me? Like, how is that okay that he's sitting there doing that? And I just started thinking, like, this guy's a dickhead. Like, I have wanted to work. I'm up on like day 5 after not sleeping around the clock. And as opposed to finding out like, hey, why is this not working right? Let's see if we can fix it. He wants to blame people. So that was number 1. Number 2, my ex-wife, a girl named Samantha, she came, this was about 2 weeks later, came home, and Dave had yelled at her because he had to get his hair washed by the professional hairdresser that they pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars per haircut that comes up from Los Angeles. The guy washed his hair. And I don't know if it's so because he's so extremely homophobic or what it was, but he had to have this guy touch his hair, and he didn't get a chance to wash it himself. So he took it out on my ex-wife, and she came home in tears and wanted to blow. I want to blow because Dave had, this like right in here, this little shitty hairdo that he has. Well, that was getting trimmed, and someone touched it, and he freaked out. So
I
she said,
choose
"I
to
want to."
believe that he did not want a gay hairdresser touching him, and that's what the problem was.
So the guy's name was Levon. He was this Armenian hairdresser, like cut the hair of the stars. I have no idea what his orientation was, but he was an amazing hairdresser. But he would come up and cut all the RTC executives' hair. But there's a good possibility that yeah, I think it's because probably Dave's homophobic, but I wouldn't know if this guy was actually, if he was gay or if he was not gay.
Okay.
He did a good haircut. I never got my haircut by him. I'm kind of a like, if it costs more than $5 or $10, I'm like, I'm probably not worth that. So, but I was like, great, let's get out of here. I was already at the point of like, I've had enough of this crap. And really the only reason why I was staying, and you'll relate to this, the only reason why people stay in those shit situations are because they have family members there that they love.
Yeah.
I love my mom, but I'm at the point later in life where I'm in my late 20s, and I thought that she's my wife at the time said, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And I was like, great, let's do it. I'll leave. I've wanted to join the military my entire life. We can just start our life from scratch. And she thought about it for a minute, and she said back to me, I'll just want to come back. I'm just going to come back, and we're going to end up getting divorced. And between those two things, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I couldn't sit there anymore because I saw what utter bullshit it was. There was obviously still a lot of programming in my mind because my whole upbringing from the point of about 7 years old was in Scientology. And then my mother took me to the Sea Organization when I was 10. I grew up in the International Ranch. Laura and I are actually going to talk about that. Laura FM and I are doing a live tomorrow night where we're going to go over our time together. And I'm about 10 years older than her. So her remembrance of me when she was little was not necessarily good, because if you take, 9-year-olds and 19-year-olds or 8 or and 18, you're going to have a disparity, especially in the Sea Org environment where, we don't treat each other right, let alone if we're put in charge of other kids. You can only imagine.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that chat. I'll be watching.
Yeah. So anyway, those two things are what changed in my mind. So when I then left, I left with nothing. So realizing like at 27 years old, I had this extreme anxiety about what am I going to do with myself? I luckily had a GED, but that's all I had. I had no credit. I had no money. I had no resources. I had been disconnected from the rest of my family for over 10 years. And it just like, what am I going to do? And I just decided to leave. I had, we had a family credit card that, was a joint between myself, my ex-wife, and I think her mother. We all shared the same one. And I just bought a one-way plane ticket when I was out on one of the manufacturing jobs I was doing to Colorado, where my family lived. And I left without being able to get in contact with him. I just bought a one-way ticket, and I was like, I guess I'll find him at the other side. And I was gone. And I knew how the blow drills worked. I would always be part of those blow drills. So I knew how fast I had to make it happen if I was going to go. And that's what I did. But it was very spur of the moment, but it all just came crashing down on me all at once, and I left. So me being here, if I had a different conversation with a different person and not Miscavige that day, if I had an executive come into my area and say, I see you're up all the time. Is this not working right? Let's fix this. Like, hey, you guys are working tirelessly for me. Let's make this better. I was happy to be there and work in shit conditions around the clock. And then if it was that the families weren't being torn apart and there was this whole like, weaponize each other against each other situation, I would probably still be there. And I think other people have said the same thing. Like the reason, if there was a difference, like different interaction with people, and if people didn't treat people so terribly bad, I would not probably be here today talking to you, and I wouldn't have the same things that I have in life.
It's totally true. I mean, I'm here today because David Miscavige, and I say David Miscavige because the Office of Special Affairs and the HCOs of the world operate at the direct orders of David Miscavige. David Miscavige insisted on destroying my family and my wife's family when I said, guys, this is not good for either of us. There's a better way. We can live in peace, and I'll leave you guys alone and you leave me alone, and families won't have to be destroyed. And they said, nah, we like our plan better. And so that is when I say that what drives me is being David Miscavige's worst nightmare. I don't care that that doesn't sound like that's a very like noble altruistic goal. I don't give a damn. We're going to help as many people as we can along the way. But my goal is to be as much of a nightmare to the world's tiniest cult leader, Lil Captain Davy of the fake space Navy, to be as much of a nightmare to him as he has been to the families of every Scientologist in the bubble. And there's nary a family in Scientology that has not been destroyed by Scientology. So look, I feel the same way you do. I'm here because of David Miscavige.
Yeah. So, I mean, he is and so I have, in terms of like, so that's where I was when I left. So where I am now, I obviously, like David Miscavige, I have no love for that man. Sometimes I'll jokingly say I would happily take him off of life support to charge my cell phone if it really made the difference for it. Just because he's such a jerk. But if at the same time, like the fact that he was such an utter tyrant made it so that I got out of that situation. And I'm glad that I did. So now I'm at a point in my life where I have 20 years of water under that bridge. And I came out and really had to figure out like things that I should have been figuring out when I was in my teens. I was figuring out at 27 years old. Like I had never had a drink of alcohol before I left. Like anything, like no beer, no nothing. Like it was all new to me. So going out there, talk about like trying to make up for lost time. And then so I did the only logical thing, which was to obviously enlist in the military at 27 years old. And now I'm the old dude with no life experience, but I have a lot of work ethic, and that has worked out for me. And I'm very like anything. I will say anyone who has left, we all have a high degree of tenacity in order to make things happen. I have trouble relaxing sometimes, being able to like de-stim and just chill and relax and like make time for me and my family. But that's something that I've gotten much better at. But at first it was not easy. But where I am at now, I'm almost thankful that the guy is such an absolute dick, because I wouldn't be here now if he wasn't.
It's true. It's a funny way of looking at it. It is absolutely true. And
Yeah.
it's funny because even when I say, because I say this a lot, if Miscavige would just treat people, if Miscavige and Scientology, by extension, just 10% better, they would probably lose nobody. I don't say that because I wish they would. I say that to point out how incompetent he is.
Right. And working with him, like he's one of these people that comes in, and now that I've worked with a lot of different people in different leadership, I don't know, situations in life, like in the military, and I don't want to overshare about the military stuff, but I've had really good leadership, and then I've had not such good leadership, and it becomes very, very obvious. But his style of leadership is very toxic. It's all about him. He's the only one that can succeed. Everything revolves around him. He micromanages all of those things. And if you do that, probably in the corporate world, or definitely in the world that I work in, you will be utterly unsuccessful as in whatever your endeavors are. That's hugely obvious. But at the same time, he pushes people so hard that they accomplish things. But that, I think, speaks not necessarily to his ability to manage people well, but how many dedicated people are into this, and how when you're in Scientology, you're all in no matter what. You'll give everything, all of your time, all of your money, all of your effort will go into that regardless of how you're treated, and regardless of if you're really accomplishing that, because that is how ingrained and dedicated they are to the cause. So despite his crappy leadership, you then have certain accomplishments that happen. And like, he'll usually like put certain people in positions where he can accomplish things. A good example of that was like Biddy Miscavige, Biddy Blythe, Sterling's mom, and Justin's mom, and Jenna's mom. They so she would be put in charge of stuff, and that woman knows how to handle project management. She would go in and she would like, hey, you want a ship renovated? I'll take care of the renovations of that ship. You want the FSO, and all the bases around there renovated? I'll take care of that. And then people like Tom DeVock And Mark Headley is a good example of that. Like, he'll put these people in positions of control, but then as soon as they start to grow legs and kind of get a little bit of ability to think for themselves and go outside of his control, then they end up getting squashed down because he has to rise to the top. It's like, it's a weird king of the hill where his hill's not getting very big because he's not very big.
I know, and Mike, I just want to linger on this point for a little bit, because you and I already know him putting people in place just to knock them down. One would have to ask, then why did you bother to put someone in a position of authority if they succeeded, you were going to get rid of them? That's what makes people wonder what his true intentions are. And we don't have to dwell on that too long, but I just wanted to point that out.
Right.
Like, he'll bring someone new in to fix something, and then if they get too much power, you're gone. It's like, but did you want it fixed? I thought, did you not want it fixed then?
So I think he wants people to be subservient to him. He loves groveling. He loves people to come in and say, like, sir, you were all right about everything. I was wrong, and then when something does go right, it's funny. I remember sitting in a lot of these meetings, and before the pie face thing started to be like, and they talk about these where people would just like have this blank expression on their face because they're scared. Like, if they smile, they're wrong. If they grimace, they're wrong. Whenever he's talking about something, let's say he's talking about all of his, like, I don't know, his underwater photography crap, and he has a bunch of people around him. Everyone is just doing the north south, and oh my gosh, like, it's the best thing ever. It's like super culty. And and you, like, when I would hear the stories about this Nexium guy, this Keith Raniere, and he would have everyone go and watch him play volleyball, and he probably sucked, and they're like, oh, he's so good, oh my gosh. That's what it is around this guy. And it's so odd. You look at it and, like, everyone else is doing it, and you're like, should I do this too? And you're like, okay, yeah. It's like, I don't even know what he's talking about. Anyway, so weird. So weird.
What are some things going on in your life that 20 years ago you just could never even have dreamed?
Well, when I was a kid at that international ranch, I wanted to go and have kind of a normal life, and I wanted to leave, and I wanted to go and join the military. And it's funny, like, sometimes as a kid, you'll be like, I want to be an astronaut when I grow up, or I want to be a pilot when I grow up. And usually we have these dreams of the thing that we want to do when we grow up. And for me, I wanted to be an Army helicopter pilot. I originally wanted to fly Apaches, but I fly Chinooks now, but that's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. And I think a lot of time life gets in our way, and that really happened for me. But then in a strange occurrence, I then found myself having to reinvent myself from scratch at 27 years old. So I'm like, I got nothing to lose. I literally have nothing to lose. I have nothing. So I'm going to go and enlist. And it was a good time to do it because there was a war going on. Like, they were, so as you come in initially, there's that whole No Child Left Behind concept in school. Well, at some point in the military, like, they needed people. So at face value, I probably didn't look that good on paper. Like, this guy with a GED is coming in at 27 years old, and he doesn't really have any job experience. Like, he sounds like he's going to be a winner. You know what I mean? Like, it was literally like, hey, we need cannon fodder. Let's put this guy in a position. So then they put you through the testing, and you're like, oh, you're kind of smart. Like, hey, we should, sit down and see what you're qualified for and put you in the right job. And then they finally did. And then I was able to slowly get in on that. And through a lot of work, I was able to qualify to do flight training. I've now become a helicopter pilot. I'm an instructor pilot. I'm a civilian instructor pilot. So I've got myself from my career goals, went from nothing very late in life, started, and have been able to kind of get myself to the point where I hoped I would be. But along with that, I wanted a family. And when I found out that who I thought my family was not going to be there for me, it became very, very hard for me to cope with that. And I kind of threw myself into my work, meaning into the military life. And I hope to someday be able to have a family. And I now have that too. I have an amazing wife, 3 beautiful girls. And it's something that I'm very glad it all happened the way that it did. So it's this weird dichotomy of the way I wish things were in the past, and then knowing if anything was different than the way that it actually worked out for me to be here, then I might not be where I am right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, it's one of the things that does make me most sad, thinking about all the people that we knew in the Sea Org, who were teenagers when we knew them, or younger, and now it's, you know, the time has just gone by. So the years have just flown by. I was just thinking about this today. People I still think of in my head as teenagers are in their 40s, and they're wasting the
Right.
prime years of their life. And if they're women, they're
Mhm.
losing the opportunity to have a family. I mean, guys can pretty much have a family pretty much whenever. But you know what I mean? Have you know, have
Yeah,
kids.
absolutely. There's a shelf life on that for ladies,
And
for sure.
and that honestly makes me just about as sad as anything else.
Mhm.
I unfortunately, I think the people in OSA who are assigned to watch our videos are all the people who are like 60, 70, 80 years old and probably don't give a shit about that anymore. I hear the
That's true.
OSA crew's getting pretty long in the tooth.
Yeah, I would expect that a lot. And I was having a conversation about somebody about this today. Rosemary agreed with me. The population for the Sea organization is usually they're moving towards retirement age or beyond, and then you have very young people that are being recruited that are second, third generation Scientology family kids that are falling susceptible to the recruitment efforts, but probably not enough. Well, plenty, because they don't need any more. I don't think, but at the same time, they just don't. They don't have a like that whole middle ground of people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s is probably pretty thin. Like, I look in the mirror and I'm like, dude, I'm in my 40s now. Like, it's a big realization in life. Like, hey, I'm getting older, and then I think that there's so many of my friends that are still back there. Like, what the hell? It's so odd. Anyway.
I know even today I was thinking like I don't think 40s is like really old. Like,
No.
but I also have to be reminded that I'm in my 40s. You know, I tend
Yeah,
to
I will.
think of
You know, I have
myself. What's that Dianetics saying? If you ask someone a question and, you know, snap their fingers or whatever, that'll tell you where they're stuck on the track. Well, I'm stuck at 22. I promise you that. I still think of myself as being 22. I have to be reminded, you're 43, bro. Calm down.
Yeah. So I've been known to have the occasional sleeping injury. Now that I'm like, you get out of bed and you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Like, oh.
I pulled a muscle in my sleep. I slept on it wrong.
Yeah, I laid on that side for too long. I broke it. Anyway, so I definitely have a very close relationship with ibuprofen because in the military and as a pilot, you really can't take anything. So this was another thing. Remember, what were we always told? And I'm gonna let you answer this. What were we always told what the military does with their officers and with their pilots?
They're all
Like,
PDH'd.
right, which is that whole thing of pain drug hypnosis. That's like that MK Ultra where they like strap you down and they're like, you know, programming you and shocking you and drugging you and stuff. Okay, I cannot take an aspirin without the flight surgeon saying, "Okay, you're allowed to take that." Like, we're not allowed to do anything. We get urinalysis all the time. We are the biggest prima donnas, and nobody has time for any of that. And if you have any connection with mental health, anything, and your sanity is in question, they'll just probably not let you fly anymore. And that's the same for the civilian sector. So the whole concept where they're telling all their people this is what they do to their military and their pilots, it's just not true. And that's one of the things when you come out here and you're like expecting certain things and you see that there's no evidence of any of these things that we're being fed, it makes it very laughable. But at the same time, I don't know if you've experienced this, you feel a little bit ashamed with yourself at how gullible you had become and what you put up with and the things that you believed in. You're like, God, I'm a little embarrassed to say some of it.
Can I tell you the story that for me, I'm almost embarrassed to tell it because I go, I could not have been that gullible, but I was. I'm going to tell the story. I'm going to come out of the closet as I'm coming out as fully gullible. Okay.
Mhm.
This has to do with the fact that I never thought we were being lied to about anything at events.
Ever.
Okay. There was some event. I don't even remember if it was anyway. The thing that was being discussed from the stage or in the presentation was about the psychiatric infiltration of the Department of Education, not only in the United States, but around the world. And one of these guys at Golden Era Productions did a voiceover in a German voice on a broken static audio track that made it sound like it was like a hidden, uncovered audio recording of someone in Germany planning the takeover of the U.S. American education system.
Mm.
I got out of that event and I called my mom and I said, "You're not going to believe it. They found a recording." And in retrospect, and I told her I couldn't believe it. And in retrospect, I go, they didn't even in the event claim that this was an original recording. It was just presented as if it were. And maybe someone else would have been like, dude, that was obviously a recreation.
Propaganda.
And I'm like,
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, but it shows you just the mindset that I was in. I was like, I didn't even realize that was a possibility. I was like, well, they wouldn't go through all the trouble of making it staticky and hissy and crackling like it was an old audio track. And
right.
I was like, I thought they had, what secret spy did they have in this German strategy meeting in the 1930s where they were, but I wasn't processing at that level.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Well, see.
And they wouldn't have been speaking English. Someone just says in the chat, they would have been speaking German.
No, but they're like the former Nazis that we've brought into the country and they've infiltrated, and like, it's embarrassing. But so there's an idea that I floated to Claire, and we're going to do a video with my cousin. I have a cousin, Jen, who is she's a counselor and psychologist, and she works with like disadvantaged children, placing kids in foster homes, but she works a lot with mental health, and she loves all this content at the same time. But my idea was to get Claire and her, and this would be also very good because you were a Scientology tech trained person, to get Jen on with you. And we've covered different aspects of mental health, what you would do if you, how you would deal with kids, how you would deal with any different thing of the way Scientology would deal with it, and then get Jen's take on that. And then I think that would be really, really interesting to get somebody that's willing to talk about like, hey, this is what we actually do working with people versus what all the Scientologists think. I am super excited to do that with Claire, but I also think that would be pretty fun to do with you as well, just because you being a tech sec, you weren't as on the auditing lines, but you were on the public delivery lines and dealing with people to make them better with Scientology. So that would be fascinating, I think.
And when you say not on the auditing lines, like not on the CSing lines, but being on the auditing lines is exactly what I was.
Okay.
Depending on.
But were you auditing? Were you doing the auditing?
No.
Okay, but you were running all of it. So from a management perspective,
and training
on how
to training the auditors and managing the auditors
as a supervisor,
not doing the auditing. Yeah.
So this is another really weird Scientology versus the real world thing, the concept of supervisor. So a Scientology teacher would be a supervisor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's so far away from what teaching is. There's nothing in supervision that has to do with teaching. So for teaching, you actually take information, you take somebody who doesn't know anything about it, they study it, you go over it with them, they can ask you questions, you help them synthesize and understand it, internalize it all. And then you can also say, hey, there's this information, and you help them come to, an application and a correlation of the information so that they get it all. Like you help them interpret that. Not in Scientology. You have to direct them to how to do that themselves, so that Hubbard is just like being imprinted on them, but they're doing the self-imprinting. And that is so far away from the way teaching and what we do with academics for training pilots and things of this nature. It is like, if someone came in and asked me a question like, hey, I have this aerodynamics question, I'll be like, well, what does it say? And like, it doesn't make sense. I'm asking a question about it. So I'll sit there and we'll draw it out and we'll do all this sort of stuff. You would get in so much trouble as a supervisor if you did that. You would get declared.
Absolutely. And also a teacher they're allowed to care about whether their student understands this information in a way that is useful to them. And you're allowed to interpret things and apply it to your own experience. I mean, if you ask a course supervisor, what does this mean? There's only one permitted response. What does your material state? And what word didn't you understand? You're not even technically allowed to tell them if they understand it correctly. You're just supposed to say, what does it say? Do you have any? Do you have a misunderstood word there? Now, also, this is a bit of a double standard because the truth is, you sort of low key tell someone they're right when you stop asking them for a misunderstood word, right?
Right.
Like,
so you point them in a direction, but only once they find the path themselves.
That's right. So you're not allowed to tell them what the right interpretation is. This, by the way, this is one of those things that where I, in my own mind, as I was processing Scientology information, I was like, oh, this is bullshit. And I can call it out as bullshit. Is that the idea of verbal tech? The biggest perpetuator of verbal tech is David Miscavige. And,
No doubt.
And so when you're standing behind someone and you're doing emitter drills with them and you're coaching them, or whether you're the coach or the supervisor, you're giving someone verbal tech when you say pass or flunk. You're saying that's not what an instant read is. You're saying that's not what an instant read is by saying flunk. That is the same thing as verbal tech. Anyway, their average viewer does not know or care what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, exactly.
20 years later, man, what are some other things that 20 years later, you won't believe this?
So that, well, I would say one of obviously the job stuff has been hard, but the whole raising children and being a father, the reflection back on the way we were raised and talking about that supervision stuff, that's the way that school was for us when we would go into a course room in Scientology to do academics, is that same sort of methodology of like drag the person through the mud until they kind of figure it out. But being a father now, and I think Claire did a video where she was talking about this with somebody else on what it's like to parent after you have been parented in the way that Scientology did, has been very, very hard for me to, well, it's been very nice to not raise my children that way, but at the same time, reflecting back on the way we were raised and the way we were all kind of stuffed in together, all of the different ages, and to then try to, I'm super lucky in that my wife has never been a Scientologist. So she is my safety net in terms of what to do, because I would probably just vapor lock at some point to be like, I don't know what to do. And she knows what to do. And she helps, figure it all out and, keep me going in the same direction that, I should be going. But I love it, but it's also extremely hard because it makes me reflect back on the way things were when I was younger. And with that, there's, residual resentment and anger, both internally and externally, like, hey, how was I treated? How did I treat others? And it's a lot of self-reflection, and that's not always an easy thing to do. I will say that after doing these things and talking about my early life, it's exhausting. Like sometimes I'm like, prior to starting all of these channels, I was a frequent flyer on as many SPTV channels as I could. And I'm still doing that, but and now it feels like I'm already out of energy to a certain degree because I'm processing things that are probably, just kind of regressed for myself. So I think being a father is helping me do those things.
Yeah.
And I'm coming to a good place with all of it, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that my generation is not going to, well, I'm glad that I'm not perpetuating this from my generation onto my children and their generation. And hopefully we're educating people so that they're not going to get involved in this, because if you have any interest in having a family, Scientology is the worst place you could possibly find yourself. I mean, if you're a consenting adult and, you like being, into stuff like that, by all means, go, stick your toe into it and check it out, but just be ready for crazy. But if you have children, I need to caution you against it. Like danger, danger, danger. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, on the difference in mindset of where I was and where I'm at now, and talking about these things, being involved in that, is processing it quite a bit.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, something you said just reminded me of the fact that, a lot of people comment, a lot of people have been watching my channel even for a long time. Wait, my camera's totally crooked, you guys. Sorry. Got to adjust it. Okay. We'll go, hey, where can I go to hear your story? And whenever I see that, I go, I'm sort of reminded, I'm like, yeah, I never talk about my story on my channel, because it is actually exhausting, emotionally exhausting, to tell one's own story over and over and over again. And when I filmed my episode of Scientology in the Aftermath, Leah Remini's show, That was 2 days. And at the end of that, you might think it was like, oh, what a relief to finally talk about that. I was like, I will never do that again. It was so emotionally exhausting. I said, that was not fun. I'm glad it's there because I'm glad to have contributed, but it wasn't fun and I'll never do it again. And so then when I started a channel, it was not because, oh, I'm going to talk about myself. It was just to talk about the second gen experience. And the idea was all of the second gen experiences. And the reason I thought that was a good idea is because I wouldn't have to talk about myself. And honestly, a fun way to, I think, do this content that isn't exhausting is to talk about stories and experiences and anecdotes and things and ideas, and then sprinkle in stories about your own history so that over time, people that watch you will feel like they know all about you, even though that's not why you do your videos or that's not why you do your channel. And I know that's just something I try to tell as many people as I can.
No, I agree with that. And so I'm doing the channel that I have for two reasons. One, I want to absolutely share my mother's story, and I want to share that with anybody who is willing to listen. And I'm going to, take experiences and go in there and still say, hey, this is what happened. This is the specifics on what went, down with her, and make sure that the senior abuse portion is talked about. And it is, there and it's available, so that people can consume it. The other thing is to share my story, which I'm less interested in doing, so that people understand what happened, so that they can see that from what happened to that next generation. But I'm less interested in doing so. And I think that I'll kind of topically go on these different programs talking about that, like a little bit more, specifically, as opposed to just the full blown thing, because at the end of it, it's just kind of exhausting. Something I do want to mention just in the chat, because I see a couple people mentioning it. I am going to be on with Laura FM tomorrow. We're actually going to be doing a live, we're going to be doing that at 6:00 Eastern. I think that's 3 Pacific. So we're going to go in there and we're going to talk. We've actually talked quite a bit on the phone. We've been able to process a lot, because I was an older kid that she as a younger kid doesn't have always fond memories of me. Probably, I don't know if she has any, to be honest with you, but it's going to be good for us to talk about this, for her to talk about it with me. And she's also, that I love, and she'll talk about this tomorrow. She's started talking to Rosemary. Rosemary knew her when she was little, and my mom's just a very caring, loving individual, but they've been able to kind of reconnect and share stories about Laura's parents, and her interaction, because Rosemary was on the RPF for years with Laura's dad, Phil. And we all know each other from up there. So it's going to be an interesting talk tomorrow. I'm going to honestly say I don't think it's going to be an easy conversation, because, I'm going to sit down in front of somebody who doesn't have complete fond memories. Now, I didn't physically ever have any interaction with Laura, like on an abusive level, but there was definitely like where I was a person making them do work as an older kid, making younger kids work. And that was just the situation we found ourselves in. And me internalizing and talking about this, I know it's not going to be easy, but I think I'm going to feel better at the end of it than I feel about it starting it. And I think hopefully at the end of it, and the intent of me doing that isn't to make myself feel better, because honestly, I don't really care about that, but I do want to talk to Laura about it. And I want to get her experience, her reflections on it, so that we can, help each other heal from it. And if she can help me heal a little bit, that's good. But really, I'm doing this more for her than I am for myself, because I know she needs to talk to me, and I think she deserves that. So we're going to do that tomorrow. But this is also a thing, like looking back for me, I see my past, I see what happened to me. And it's very easy for me to look at, the things that I liked, the things that I didn't about my past. And it's hard. We're not always great at thinking about, like, okay, well, how are our interactions with other people? There was probably, when I was at Gold, I have a lot of friends, but those are my contemporaries. We were all in kind of a similar situation. So for me to look back at, like, okay, the left and right of where I was and how that interaction affected others, is something that I've only recently started to look at, because before I was just in my head about how crappy my own life was, before. And now I'm at a point of being able to kind of look at it and like, okay, I can take a look at this and kind of say, maybe I could have been better in certain areas, and maybe I was straight up bad in other ones. So anyway, if you want some good high quality YouTube healing and drama tomorrow, Laura and I are looking forward to doing that. So
it's funny you mention that, because I was thinking recently that I've interviewed a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people, and yet I haven't spoken with anyone yet who was like, by the way, you were a real asshole to me in the Sea Org. And I'm like, huh. I mean, surely there were people I was an asshole to in the Sea Org. I guess maybe I was such an asshole they stayed in Scientology.
Yeah, they're like, we heard Aaron left, we're never leaving.
It's safer in here.
He's gonna write a KR on me if I come out.
Oh my God.
But if you think back, like, it is stressful to live in that situation. It was stressful to grow up in that situation. But if I look back, and I'm looking back at it with the benefit of hindsight, like I'm looking at it through the lens of me today, where I'm at now, and looking back at how those interactions were, I can look at them differently and I can process them, I think, and hopefully more honestly than I would have at the time. Because at the time I would have said, hey, this is how we're living. Everyone's got to pull their weight. And there would be all these internal built up justifications on why all of that is okay. And I don't have those the same way now, but it's hard to look back and change the mindset of the way your mind was back then, other than just to reflect on it, which is really all we can really do at this point. So.
Yeah. Okay. So you're one of these really interesting creatures who born and raised in Scientology, and you're married to someone who was never in Scientology. I think, unless I'm forgetting anyone, the only other person I've been able to talk to in that situation is Jeff Beaumont. And what's incredible,
that was an interesting conversation.
He and his wife have, it's funny, halfway through, I was like, you two really strike me as someone who've never argued. They're like the perfect match for each other. And I think he was like, yeah, I don't think we've ever had an argument. I'm like, my dad was never in Scientology, and and he was never actually married to my mom, by the way. That's why I have the two last names. Smith is my mom's name, Levin is my dad's name. But when I was young, he married the woman he's still married to, and these two are just so perfect for each other. They too, I've never heard them raise their voices to each other. I've never heard them be cross or snide or mean with each other. And so some people are just like that. And why am I mentioning that aspect of it? Oh, well, I just found it fascinating. I just found it absolutely fascinating. So my question to you, though, on that subject, of course, I'm not going to, that's not a standard. I don't even know that's ideal.
And I have an answer to your question. You go ahead and ask it. I know what you're going to ask, so go ahead and ask.
No. My question is different than what you would think. So answer what you thought I was going to ask.
Well, I too, with Emily, like you always have disagreements in a marriage. Like you're going to want to do this, you're going to do that. You didn't, hey, I thought you were going to do this, and there's little disagreements. I am so exhausted from all the fighting and being in Scientology that I will go out of my way to not have an argument. And sometimes that has translated into I'm sitting there just not sharing my emotions. And we've worked through that quite a bit to the point of like, hey, it's important to talk about certain things, but we've never had a yelling fight ever. Ever. No, we don't do it. No, sometimes it'll be like, like a little passive aggressive, like, well, I guess I'll take the garbage out. And then they're like, boom, you know what I mean? And Emily does passive aggressive, like really, really well. And I'm like, oh, I screwed up. Okay. But I don't like fighting. But I love being in the Army and I love that.
Wow.
But I don't in my own. Yeah. So we don't.
So you don't want to join, you don't want to join me and Mitch for any of our chats?
I want to watch them, but the same way that I want to watch like a dumpster fire. But you guys landed it. You really did. At the end, I was like, "Oh, this doesn't look good." I was texting Mark and Sterling. I'm like, "Are you watching this?" They're like, "Yeah."
It's amazing how many people did not finish watching that video and just unsubscribed.
But you guys came back to a good place on it. But it was no, we've never done that. And
that's incredible. That really is incredible.
I don't know if it's a difference in the anyway. Well, what was your question?
Well, I mean, honestly, you got pretty close to it, but so I was like, okay, someone who was born and raised not only in Scientology but in the Sea Org, because I wasn't even born and raised in the Sea Org. It's a completely different experience. On some level, someone who's never been in Scientology, hearing stories like that, either has to be thinking, you are making this shit up, or either you are a lying storyteller, or you are crazy. I don't even know what the actual question here is like, is there some
How
parts
does
of your
somebody
past where
like
she's
Bam
like,
relate to
where,
somebody like us?
where she's just like, how does she even relate to you? It's sort of where I'm coming to.
Mhm.
In a weird way, because obviously you're an example and Jeff is an example where it's just worked out incredibly well. But help me
Yeah.
understand how that worked, particularly in the beginning, I guess.
So I didn't lead with that when we met. Let me put it that way. So at this time when we met, I had probably, been out for 6 or 7 years, and um, I had recently returned from a deployment, and we met each other, and we, started spending time together. And I think once we actually kind of, had a couple dates that I actually mentioned, like, hey, I got, because we're getting at the point of like, hey, you should probably meet my parents. And her parents are still married. Like, it's a little bit more of a white picket fence situation for her than it is for me. But then I felt obligated to like say, yeah, I need to kind of probably explain a few things. And one thing that she found interesting was, how, and I don't believe in all of the OT powers and all this sort of stuff, but I do think as Scientologists, with all of the training and stuff, we became very attuned to people's um to their changes in their mood and things that, like, how they would react to things. Like, you almost become not empathetic, but you are able to kind of read people. And that is one thing that I got. So I was fairly good at reading people. So I was, I would be able to, see the way she's reacting and try to adapt to that in order to, have a good situation. And I started talking about all this crazy, and she's like, okay, I wasn't sure of how crazy this was going to go. Um, but talking through it, I found she thought it was very interesting. As long as I was upfront and just told her all about it, she thought I didn't have any judgment. It was really strange. But I had also been out for about 7 years, and I had like, hey, I'm doing this whole like flying thing. And I had another part of my life that I didn't just I wasn't just talking about those things. So I had an aspect to my life where when I left, I very much put all of the Scientology behind me 100%, and now had a different friend base and a lot of friends in the military, and, like a whole existence for myself in a 7-year period that was outside of that. But I had to bring the crazy in on it pretty fast. And she never judged me. And there was a lot of questions, and I never felt judged. I felt it was safe to talk to her about it. And for me, I met the right person where that made sense, and I didn't feel lesser than in the conversation as a result, which is why I think worked out. But we don't do the fighting thing either. I think sometimes she would prefer if we like, hey, we need to probably, like, there's some shit we need to go over. But we do. And that's something I've had to do, because the whole Scientology, communication technology, it's such a scripted bullshit thing. It's not actually getting at the root of thoughts and emotions, because we're taught to suppress those things, and we're taught to keep our emotions in. We're not supposed to natter. We're not, not supposed to share opinions and all this. So it gets you not as a good communicator of your thoughts. And I almost like you make this fake reality, and you're like, I need to just be realistic about what's going on in here. And then it worked much better. So that's a work in progress for me.
So I'll say this. I mean, me and my wife, Heather, we're married in the Sea Org, and we're still married now. And we've had, over the last 20 years, a lot of yelling fights. It's never ever gone beyond yelling fights, but and I was never quite sure whether that was us carrying over, recreating, I don't know what the right word is, reliving our Sea Org experience, or the fact that we were simply raised in households where that was the behavior in our parents we observed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure who gets the blame there. I actually feel like it's more our own childhood home life that is probably the reason for the mirroring that behavior than in the Sea Org. I guess I'd like to think it would be easier for me to let go if it was just Sea Org, and less easy to let go since it was our own, as the kids say, lived experience.
So my father was a very dominating personality, and there was a lot of yelling when I was a kid before my parents got divorced. And I was probably more of a mama's boy where I did not like that. It didn't make me feel safe.
Yeah.
But I never experienced that as a teenager,
Mm.
except in the Sea Org. So it was very common. Like everyone's always yelling all the time. Like that's the way you communicate. If it's not right, you just yell and yell and yell. There's even LRH policies that talk about you yell to get stuff done. There's like ethics presence and ships stay off the rocks because somebody yells. There's like a bunch of like that is a way of doing that. So when we then go later in life, like into my teens, which I think is where you start laying in some of that fundamental responses. But it's a weird thing. It wasn't family life at that point. It was work life. And that's the way that we being raised as children at the ranch there was a lot of yelling. There was, I had a lot of friends and fun and stuff, but when you deal with people, there was a lot of yelling that would go on. But it was never fun for me. So I never then wanted to do it. But I have had other relationships where they weren't as easy as the one I'm in now. I think with the right person.
Mm.
But I do have the thing of like, I would rather not fight and just be quiet than actually yell about it.
Mm.
It's not always a good thing. Sometimes you do need to just let those emotions out. But for me, they represented a fight like that would be, it would be like something breaking and not being able to fix it is how it felt to me. Like that's what clicks in my head when it starts to turn into the yelling stuff. So, and that's not true, but that's where I go on it. Like, oh shit, this is going to fall apart if it turns into this. Let's back this up, which is okay to not yell because, our kids don't see us yelling. It's mom and dad always talking about stuff. So I think that's good for them. That's the thing I'm talking about in terms of the difference in parenting and how the household experience is for that. But, I think it has more to do with who I'm with and the fact of how we clicked. And it sounds like it's a similar match to the other gentleman and his wife that you had on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Every now and then, someone who does care enough to take the time to try to point things out to me. When I say someone, I don't even mean a specific person. I mean, I can think of many different people who've tried to point out to me, like, the volume of what you're saying is not in any way assisting with the understanding of your point on the other side. And it's funny because I actually have to try to understand that. And I'm like, I really feel like the volume is helping. I'm like, I really feel like it's helping. I think it's important for the other person to know just how I feel about this and not just what they have
And if you repeat over and over again, let me finish what I had to say like 30 times, they'll eventually let you do that.
Right. Or if you just say, calm down.
Oh, well, or tell somebody that they're acting crazy, that usually fixes it.
You're being just like your mother. No, I'm just kidding. I would never say that.
Actually, I have a really cool mother-in-law. Like I mess with her all the time. We poke fun at each other, but she's amazing. So anyway, hey, I hate to put a pin in how late this can go, but I have to take a kid to a thing. So I wanted to just leave time if there were questions that we do that. I probably have about another 15 minutes if we want to roll through stuff.
Let's do it. Let's roll through some super chats here. Okay, let's see. Diana B, it's my birthday. So happy for the live. Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Brosef, now your channel has made 10 US dollars and 10 Canadian dollars, Mike.
What? 5.4x people. Let's do this. No.
Love it. Love it. Miranda Brinker, here's to more than $10 on your 20-year anniversary. Well, there you go.
Thank you very much.
Diana or Nailus. Isn't it funny if they were super chatting on my channel and they didn't understand that it didn't go to you?
That'd be all right. I'll buff out, right?
Oh my God. Okay. Diana Ornelas, planning on being there on Saturday. Protest sign ideas. Focus on people on the inside or outside. That's interesting, Diana. I've never given much thought to that. I have zero experience participating in protests, and I'm not sure what the best strategy is for protest signs. Are you trying to do signs that reach people on the inside or reach people on the outside?
I don't think people on the inside are going to see them, except for public. And public are going to be advised to not come if there's protesters there or to take a different route to avoid the protesters. So if you're protesting, I think you're spreading the word. You're getting a word out. You're exercising your First Amendment right to free speech. And I think that you should put up the things that you want to communicate about it. But I would in such a way as to not like if you have a beef with Scientology, make that clear, but at the same time, love Scientologists that are still there, because like having compassion and making the world seem safe for them on the outside is the best cure for hopefully them coming out at some point. That's my take on it.
I totally agree. No, I totally agree. And I think it's a little difficult, right? Because, and again, I'm going to speak on a thing I know nothing about, which is protests. I've never participated in protests. I think I've even said publicly in videos that I never would, that I didn't think they were helpful, that I might have even said they're a waste of time. When I've said things like that, that was from my very own personal and narrow experience and perspective of having been on the inside and never having given one iota of shits about anything anyone outside of Scientology thought about what I was doing, whether they were on a picket line, whether they had a sign, whether they were handing out Xenu flyers. It had zero impact on me. When people say, was there anything anybody could have ever said or done to you when you were on the inside that would have made you change your mind? I say no.
Well, unless you're David Miscavige.
Exactly.
And then he'll help you get out.
By the way, guys, since I've been a little negligent on my duties of promoting these cute little fellas, let me pull this up. If you want to get your very own little Captain Davy of the Fake Space Navy, go to the SP shop on Fourth Wall and order yours today. All proceeds go to support the Aftermath Foundation, which helps people who are escaping from Scientology. Okay, let's go back to me crapping on protesters. Okay, so the fact is, anything I've said on that in the past has specifically just been an honest reflection on my thoughts on those from when I was on the inside. I think people organize protests and demonstrations for all variety of reasons. I think people participate in them for all variety of reasons. And I think it's probably just straight up ignorant to say they don't do anything. I think they accomplish many different things in many different ways for many different people. Right. And so I just wanted to say that. And I just honestly don't know whether there is anything you could put on a sign that would impact someone on the inside. Okay, let me ask you this. What about, I hear about people who did signs back in the day, Mike Rinder blew, so can you. I got to tell you, if I didn't know that Mike Rinder blew, and I saw a sign like that, that would plant a seed.
Yeah, I would say around those areas, if there are salient or significant people that people on the inside would know, like if they're, I don't know who's in the LA area or who is specifically in those areas, if you have their names on the sign that they are endorsing and are behind this sort of thing, and there's people on the inside that might know that, or with respect to the protests and everything that are going to be happening in the UK, you're going to have a lot of public and things coming in. I think there's an opportunity there to touch the public and to jog their memory about certain things, like talking about senior abuse. I don't think anyone gives a crap to hear about Xenu, to be honest with you. But if you start talking about specifics on abuse of children and of the elderly and things of this nature, it's probably they're going to start sniffing around, wondering like, what are they talking about? Because that would, I think to a certain degree, they're going to wonder like, hey, am I going to be implicit in something if I like, is there something going on that I don't know about? Hopefully some specifics on abuse might shed some light on that. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
I know you're short on time, so we're going to try to roll through these. See, girl. Thank you, Mike Rosemary and Aaron, saving lives.
Thank you.
Thank you. Blake Reed. Hey, Aaron and Mike, I can't come to the protest and I'm friggin' livid. Have to work, got them bills, but Captain Davey can cash these hands any day of the week.
America.
Juliana Bittencourt. It's pronounced John Scooby-Dooski.
There you go.
Zigma. Kind of like Ligma, but that's okay. Please do something about that plank of wood. Guys, the plank of wood is not there just to cover up an outlet. It's there to cover up the big ugly cord that's plugged into the outlet. And one of these days, I'm going to rearrange things so that the cord is plugged in somewhere else, and then I will remove that plank of wood. Ken's channel. Aaron, I love your reasons. I hope little Davy baby screams like Tony Montana, sans guns, and okay, when you post a new video. Thank you. Thank you very much. Say hello to my little friend.
My little friend.
Okay, Janda Panda, love you, Rosemary, superhero. I love any screen name that includes the word panda, especially after I introduced a new character to the SBTV universe, and that's Bubba the Love Panda. We won't get into details on who Bubba is.
Oh no, I saw what you were talking about. Yeah, your update. That was
he's never known the love of a woman.
There's a lot going on there. Get on to making that toilet wine.
It's amazing how many people unsubscribed once being introduced to Bubba the Love Panda.
Oh,
Oh my
boy.
God, guys. Okay, Celtic Sailor 11. I don't know what this means. Can you want to read this?
11 Bravo humor, infantry size. So 11 Bravo is an infantry soldier. So there's different classifications. We all have numbers for what our jobs are. So that's an infantry soldier humor, second of the two, 22nd infantry style. What do you do if you get in a Chinook and there's no oil on the ramp? You get off because there's no oil left in it. It drips a lot of oil and stuff. So if something's ever leaking, sometimes our flight engineers will tell the passengers like, hey, keep an eye on that. If it stops leaking, let me know, because then it's out.
That's nice. I love it.
Yeah.
Mountain Dew X97 stumbled upon Going Clear years ago, would go back to it annually. Found SPTV roughly a year ago. Now can't wait to be here when Scientology fails. Thank you. Wonder Woman, Aaron, you were not gullible. You were loyal and committed to a cause in which you were raised to believe. Well, thank you. Ms. Pillow, thank you very much. Cat B, thank you very much. Joni Cummings, thank you, Aaron, for the wrench, and thank you for introducing Mike Brown to us. You're welcome, Joni.
Thanks, Joni.
Okay, Patty, happy anniversary and thank you for your service. And thank you. Wait, happy anniversary and thank you for your service. Mike, so happy you and Rosemary are out. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Patty.
Z McCarthy, Aaron, why you and your wife yell is less important than finding ways to interact in a healthy fashion. Well, thank you. It's been quite a while since we've had a yelling match, and I choose to believe that's for the better.
Absolutely.
Lori plays, this is for a cup of coffee for your sweet mama.
Absolutely. I'll probably buy her like a Panera pizza or something like that, because she doesn't do coffee anymore, but I'll definitely, it'll go to good use.
Nice. John Sostovsky, the living legend. Hey, Aaron, has your wife ever said, you done messed up? Not in those exact words, but it would be funny if she did.
So to speak.
Yeah. Ms. Pillow, on one side toward Scientology, have a sign that says, you're welcome out here. And on the other public facing side, say, don't go in. I like that.
That's actually
okay.
A great idea. Yeah.
It is. Jamie Lynn, hey guys, my dad is buried in a military cemetery, which has options for different faiths on the tombstone. Is there a Scientology option? I've never seen one. What would they choose if they served?
That's a good question. I've actually wondered the same thing, and I haven't actually ever asked mortuary affairs who would handle things like that, or a funeral home. You know what? I'm going to find out an answer to this question because I think it's pretty fascinating. But usually what you'll have when you have national cemeteries like Arlington, all of the tombstones look very uniform. They're all just a white tombstone, and they're all in very, symmetrical lines. The regular cemeteries that you'll go to, everything's, very unique to the individual, but there's no symmetry to it. When you go to a national cemetery, it's like troops standing in formation, and it adds to like kind of the impact when you're in such a place. But every one of the headstones has whatever faith the person is. If they had a faith, it'll be engraved on there. So for Christians or Judaism or whatever that is, they'll have a different symbol for it. I don't know if there's one for Scientologists.
For one of those headstones, does there have to be something in the ground under the headstone?
Not necessarily. Sometimes they will have, it depends if the person is cremated or if they're buried. So the reason
I'm asking that question is because I've never known a Scientologist to not be cremated.
I know that they have different, like they'll, I think that most of the headstones are actually for the ones who are buried there. And then there are other areas that you could have but then you would have your ashes there. So I don't know.
So
if
the ashes could be buried under the headstone.
Potentially, or they'd be put in a vault or something like that. That might be, kept separately. That's a good question. I really don't have a good answer to it, but I think it's one that I'm gonna look into and find out.
It seems to me that the only proper inscription on a Scientology headstone would be, "We come back," or "I'm coming back."
That's
which is a little dark for a tombstone.
Yeah, so I don't know that they would want to be buried, because most of the time they don't like they'll do other memorial services and they'll be cremated, and most of the time they scatter the ashes. That's right. I don't know that if there's a policy on it, but there might be, in terms of making a shrine to someone keeps the Thetan, like it's a theta trap. So, when you put like flowers and stuff by an accident scene, they won't do things like that because they think it keeps a person stuck there. So I don't know what their relationship would be to cemeteries and the way that most of the cultures actually honor their dead.
Yeah. Becca's wants to know, how can you not have ever been to a protest? I don't know, Becca's. How can you not have ever been in a cult? I don't
Well, maybe Becca's was.
Okay. Oh, Becca's. Seriously, I really hope there will be someone else with experience will be there. It's not my protest, Becca. The protest is being put on by Alexa Nicholas of
Mhm.
Eat Predators, and she's a veteran
She
of
seems like a
protests.
professional at that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. We're almost done here. Superstorm Day for protest. We love all of you, and we will help you find real peace or list lots of people who have blown. Yeah, that's a good idea. Lulu92, my grandpa was buried in a casket in a military cemetery. Grandma's ashes are in a box on top of him. They share a headstone like Mike was describing. That's nice.
It's beautiful.
All right, look, I know you got to go. So we did an hour 15. Not bad at all. Let me get my little outro thing ready here. Oh, shoot. Do I have your channel? Yes, I do. Guys, if you're not already subscribed to Mike Brown, jump over there and subscribe to Mike Brown at Mike Brown 101. Lots of great stuff coming from him in the future. Thanks for hanging out with us this evening, you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not,